The result, across the American chip industry, is closer to a massacre than a market correction. Mostek, the former drum leader, is sold off in pieces by 1985, absorbed by a French conglomerate after years of losses. Other American memory makers fold one by one, unable to survive years of Japanese firms selling below cost. TI buys out Hitachi stake and absorbs the plant as a wholly owned subsidiary. Hitachi writes off roughly $500 million and walks away.
Texas Instruments didn't start as an electronics company. It started as an oil survey company. In 1930, a geophysicist named J. Clarence Karcher, together with businessman Eugene McDermott, co-founded Geophysical Service Incorporated, GSI, to sell seismic equipment to oil companies hunting for underground deposits. The tool of the trade was reflection seismology. Set off a small explosion, record the sound waves bouncing back through rock layers, and read the echoes to find oil. McDermott is worth remembering. He's not just a co-founder here. He'll stay with the company through its rename and its rise, and he'll still be shaping it as chairman decades later, long after the oil survey business is a footnote. That's a signal processing problem. Amplifiers, filters, recording instruments. GSI built all of it in-house because nobody else was building precision electronics for oil fields. World War II accelerated the pivot. GSI's engineers built submarine detection gear for the U.S. Navy. By the time the war ended, the company had a division that knew more about building rugged, reliable electronic instruments than it did about finding oil. In 1951, that division was renamed Texas Instruments. Within a decade, TI wasn't drilling for anything. It was manufacturing transistors and about to stumble into inventing the device that would define the rest of the century. The company that eventually taught the world to build the chip started out reading echoes underground.
July 1958. Most of Texas Instruments has cleared out for the company's mandatory summer vacation. One man hasn't earned vacation time yet. He's too new. Jack Kilby, a 34-year-old engineer fresh from Central Lab in Milwaukee, has been at TI for a matter of weeks. With almost the entire engineering staff gone, he has a lab and total silence to himself. He's been staring at what everyone in the industry calls a tyranny of numbers. Every circuit needs more transistors, more resistors, more capacitors, and every one of them has to be wired to the next by hand. Complexity was outrunning the ability to physically assemble it. Kilby's idea, scribbled in a lab notebook that summer, is almost absurdly simple. What if every component, the transistor, the resistor, the capacitor, was carved from the same block of material? No wires between separate parts. One chip, one material, germanium. By September, with his supervisors back on vacation, he builds a working version, a spindly, ugly-looking sliver of germanium taped to a glass slide, wires sticking out odd angles. It works. It oscillates. It's the first integrated circuit on Earth. Here's the part that gets left out of the clean version of this story. Kilby wasn't alone in reaching this destination. 6 months later, nearly 1,500 miles away in California, Robert Noyce at Fairchild Semiconductor files his own patent for an integrated circuit, a cleaner, more manufacturable version using silicon instead of germanium, with components connected by a printed layer instead of dangling wires. What follows isn't a handshake. It's a legal fight that will drag on for more than a decade. Noyce's patent is granted first in 1961. TI contested immediately, arguing Kilby's original 1959 filing already covered the same ground, and the U.S. Patent Office agrees to hear the two claims side by side. What follows is years of sworn testimony, notebooks entered as courtroom evidence, and engineers on both sides trying to prove not just who had the idea first, but whose version could actually survive contact with a factory floor. By 1966, with no resolution in sight and the legal bills mounting on both sides, TI and Fairchild make a pragmatic choice. They cross-license the technology. Whatever a court eventually rules, both companies agree the other can build products on patent, each paying royalties back to the other. The fight over money is over. The fight over history isn't. The legal case itself grinds on for 4 more years, through an appellate ruling that splits the win between them on different technical claims, until 1970, when the U.S. Supreme Court declines to hear a final challenge, closing the book for good. By then, the industry has already moved past the argument. History settles into crediting both men as co-inventors of the integrated circuit, a title neither company's lawyers were ever willing to hand the other by choice. One overlooked new hire, one empty summer lab, and a rival on the opposite side of the country reaching for the exact same idea at nearly the exact same time. That collision is where the chip industry actually begins. By the late 1970s, Texas Instruments isn't just in the chip business. It's one of its most important players in one of the industry's biggest new markets, DRAM, dynamic random, access memory. The chips that let every computer hold data it's actively using. TI is one of the first companies to mass-produce DRAM at scale, and for years it's the largest semiconductor company in the world by revenue. It isn't even the biggest name in DRAM specifically. For a stretch, a scrappier rival called Mostek, founded by TI's own former engineers, actually leads the memory market outright. But for TI, memory isn't a side project either way. It's a crown jewel. Then, in the early 1980s, a wave arrives from Japan. Companies like Fujitsu, Toshiba, and NEC, backed by patient capital, tight coordination with Japanese banks, and manufacturing discipline honed on consumer electronics, start producing DRAM chips at a scale and a price point American firms simply cannot match. They're not just competing. They're pricing to win market share, even a loss, betting on volume and long-term dominance over short-term margin. The result, across the American chip industry, is closer to a massacre than a market correction. Mostek, the former DRAM leader, is sold off in pieces by 1985, absorbed by a French conglomerate after years of losses. Other American memory makers fold one by one, unable to survive years of Japanese firms selling below cost. The damage doesn't stay confined to company boardrooms. It becomes a matter of national policy. In 1986, Washington and Tokyo signed the UDA-ESTA, Japan's semiconductor agreement, an attempt to stop Japanese firms from selling them below the cost of production. A year later, 14 of America's biggest chip makers, Texas Instruments among them, pool resources with the U.S. government to form Semitech, a research consortium built for one purpose: relearn how to out-manufacture Japan before there's no American chip industry left worth saving. TI isn't a bystander in this fight. It's a founding member, sending its own engineers into a shared lab in Austin to help rebuild an industry-wide manufacturing edge, while its own DRAM division back home keeps losing money by the quarter. The company is, in effect, fighting the same war on two fronts at once, collectively through the consortium and alone inside its own balance sheet. And in 1985, Intel, the company literally founded by Robert Noyce, the man who fought TI over the original chip patent, makes a call that becomes the industry's cautionary tale in reverse. It exits DRAM entirely in a single brutal move and bets everything on microprocessors instead. It's remembered as one of the boldest decisions in Silicon Valley history. Texas Instruments watches all of this happen and doesn't do the same thing. Instead, TI holds on restructuring, folding its DRAM operations into a joint venture with Hitachi, absorbing years of losses, betting that scale and partnership can outlast the price war MasTec and Intel couldn't. For over a decade, TI keeps fighting a war that its own rival already declared unwinnable. The mountain TI spent decades climbing is still, in the 1990s, the same mountain that's slowly burying it. Back to that boardroom. Same building. 1998. But before this exact scene can happen, one more piece has to fall first, and it falls just months earlier. Since 1995, TI hasn't been running its DRAM business alone. It's been splitting the risk with Hitachi through a joint venture called Twinstar Semiconductor, running a state-of-the-art fab in Richardson, Texas. Twinstar started production in 1996, just as DRAM prices collapse again. It never has the chance to build a cushion. By February 1998, TI and Hitachi quietly dissolved Twinstar altogether. TI buys out Hitachi's stake and absorbs the plant as a wholly owned subsidiary. Hitachi writes off roughly $500 million and walks away. That's the real ending of the hold on and wait it out strategy, not a dramatic collapse, but a partner quietly leaving the table. For months later, TI does the same thing at a bigger scale, for good. The man signing that bigger deal is Thomas Engebus, CEO since 1996, when he took over after his predecessor, Jerry Junkins, died sudden of a heart attack while traveling in Europe. Engebus inherited a company still bleeding from a memory business that refuses to turn around. The decision on the table: sell the company's entire memory division, plants, patents, and the fab it just finished absorbing from Twinstar to Micron Technology, a rival it once dwarfed. In exchange, it walks away from DRAM for good. 13 years after Intel made the same call, TI finally makes it too. But this version isn't a leap into the unknown the way Intel's was in 1985. It's the last step of a plan already years in motion. Because quietly, through the very years it kept fighting to save DRAM, TI had also been building something else: digital signal processors. DSPs, chips built specifically to turn real-world analog signals, sound, radio, motion, into digital data fast. It's TI's own turf, rooted in the same signal processing DNA the company carried all the way back to its seismic survey origins.
Looking for a powerful home computer? This is the one. Texas Instruments home computer. With 16K memory, it can take you a long way.
TI had been shipping DSPs commercially since the early 1980s, and by the mid-1990s, they were already becoming the company's real growth engine, just running in parallel with a memory business nobody could kill fast enough. The 1998 sale isn't TI discovering a new direction. It's the company finally admitting the direction had already changed and letting go of an identity that no longer matched the business. What looked on paper like finishing last in a race Intel had already won 13 years earlier was actually something else entirely. TI arriving with what Intel never had to build under pressure: a fully formed second business, ready to become the whole company the moment the old one was cut loose. Texas Instruments is still here. It's not the largest chip maker in the world anymore. It doesn't need to be. It's one of the dominant global players in analog chips and embedded processors, the unglamorous components tucked inside everything from cars to industrial equipment to the calculator still sitting in classrooms decades after DSP technology made TI a household name in education. Meanwhile, look at the graveyard of the DRAM era. MasTec, once the actual market leader, gone by the mid-1980s. Other American memory makers that held on too long simply folded. Intel survived by cutting the cord early in one sharp move and rebuilding its whole identity around microprocessors from scratch. Texas Instruments survived by cutting the same cord late, but landing on a second identity it had already spent over a decade quietly building.
Two companies, two different clocks, the same ending, still standing, because neither one kept fighting for a business that had already stopped being theirs to win. Texas Instruments didn't survive the chip industry by moving first. It survived by being willing to kill the thing it was famous for, even after everyone else already had, and even after it took 13 extra years to admit it.